For a season that started out slow.
On a hop,
The Milwaukee Brewers
got him!
are having
Brewers have hung a dozen on Pittsburgh.
a ball.
And the Brewers walk off the Marlins. They sweep the Dodgers. It is a walk-off home run!
This week on Open Record,
14 in a row for the Milwaukee Brewers.
bonus burgers and pocket pancakes.
You want some?
And oh yeah,
I'm not trying to run back losing in the first round of the playoffs.
it's Packers season too.
Until I get that trophy, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything.
From the Fox 6 studios, this is Open Record. I'm Bryan Polcyn, and I'm joined here by Fox 6's Ted Perry. Hello, Ted.
Hey.
And we're joined once again by Fox 6 sports director Tim Van Vooren. Tim, welcome back.
Be with both of you.
And it's nice to talk about these kind of things. We're recording this on Wednesday, August 20th. As we record, people are lined up outside George Webb, getting their free burger for the 12 in a row for the third time in franchise history.
And everyone is posting it on social media.
Yeah, oh, it's everywhere. Yeah, and the lines are long, too.
Yeah.
I mean, people are waiting a long time for a burger.
Even in Peshtigo.
Really?
There's a George Webb in Peshtigo, and our Green Bay station reports there's a line there as well.
You heard it here first. Well, probably not if you're in Peshtigo. The Brewers are in the midst of a 5-game series with the rival Chicago Cubs, a team they have leapfrogged in the standings and then some in an unforgettable summer. And the Green Bay Packers, by the way, they're gearing up for their final preseason game as the Detroit Lions loom in Week 1, September 7th. We are having a ball this week on Open Record, and we'll talk about all that right after this. All right, we are back on Open Record. They say Memorial Day weekend is the official start of summer. And if you go back 3 months to Saturday, May 24th, the Brewers were 25-28, 3 games under 500, 4th place in the standings. The Cubs were in first, flying high. Andrew Vaughn was a member of the Chicago White Sox organization. Jacob Misiorowski had never started a Major League Baseball game. And Craig Counsell's Chicago Cubs were in first place. This has been quite a summer, right? I mean, this has been something else.
It really has been. And if you'll remember I remember on the eve of June, they had a few wins at the end of May, right? I think it was against the Twins. Could be wrong about that. And Christian Yelich said, we got 4 months of baseball left. And it dawned on me right then. I go, June, July, August, September. He's right. So much time to turn it around. I didn't suspect they'd turn it around this much, though.
I don't think anyone could have imagined this, Tim. I mean, in terms of what they've done statistically, just wins and losses since then, it's almost unheard of. It certainly is for the Brewers organization.
Absolutely, and no one foresaw this in spring training. Nobody saw this in that first month of the season that you're talking about. And I am struck as much as anything by the in-season improvement of the players, which has made a collective in-season improvement for the team. It's hard to improve during a baseball season, right? You're playing almost every day. So you look at some of these infielders in particular who have gotten so much better as the season has gone along. Say Caleb Durbin. This is a guy who was not even on the opening day roster. He comes up in the course of what we've seen this season. He has drastically improved as a baseball player while playing baseball games. To me, it's kind of the mark of the Brewers. Isaac Collins, some of these other players you have not even heard of suddenly are major contributors to the best team in baseball.
Pat Murphy wasn't even sure of Collins' first name about a week ago during a post-game news conference. He said, Collins' first name? I mean, yeah, it's a bunch of collection of guys that, as Tim points out, you didn't know on opening day.
That's kind of part of what makes this, I think, so special, isn't it? Because sometimes you've got a couple of big superstars and you ride those superstars to a playoff season. This wasn't really expected to be like this, but every night it seems like there's a different hero and someone coming through, in late innings. You could probably rattle off any number of names, but I think of Andrew Vaughn and the things he's done since coming over from the White Sox. That's one of those things, by the way, we always talk about it when we do sports, that I came from St. Louis, Cardinals fan, and people would often say, the Cardinals, where do they get these guys? Where do they pick these guys up? That's what it feels like right now. Where did Andrew Vaughn come from and suddenly become such a force? And that's just one of many names.
He came from a malcontent pitcher who didn't want to go to the bullpen, Aaron Savale. Mm-hmm. And they basically said to the White Sox, what do you got? Well, we'll give you cash in this guy. And the Brewers just said, fine, because they wanted Savale out. It was bad juju. I mean, you can't have a guy on this team saying, I don't want to go to the bullpen. That wasn't going to fly in a Pat Murphy team.
There is no room. There was no room for Aaron Savali. There would be no room for Aaron Savali right now. There's no room for several other good pitchers right now, the way the Brewers have put it together this season, because they have gotten contributions, as you say, Brian, from so many different people. Their body of work is pretty good. And the individual moments, you talk about Andrew Vaughn, he's definitely stood out. How about Andrew Monasterio, who hits the home run to keep things going in the win streak the other night? He comes off the bench as a pinch hitter. Boom, he cracks a home run, and he's jumping up and down around the bases. It's that
Blake
it's been
Perkins
that way.
is
Blake
Mr.
Perkins.
Walk-Off.
Blake Perkins, for sure. He's such a class individual. People love him so much who know him, and then to see him come up with some of these standout plays. Jacob Mizorowski from nowhere is on the All-Star team. Are you kidding me? As you said, he wasn't even in the bigs when you're going back to Memorial Day or so there. So it's really been a spectacular summer. As you say, we're taping and in the middle of the Cubs series, and things can go rapidly south or north or whatever. This might sound dated, but big picture, this Brewers team has been so far above expectations and such a sum of its parts type team.
Well, one thing we know for sure by the time now the podcast will be published on Thursday. By Sunday, it starts airing. It airs on FOX6 News. Late at night. By then, they're sure to still be in first place because they've built such a lead. It felt like an insurmountable lead until maybe Tuesday with the back-to-back, the doubleheader losses in Chicago. Suddenly you go, well, 7 games. All right, we still got work to do. There's still work
worst
to be
case
done,
scenario.
right?
By the time we're taping on Wednesday and the time this airs on Sunday, the worst case scenario is they're up by 2.
And I don't think anyone thinks that's likely, right?
That's right.
That doesn't seem likely at all. But I do wonder, talk about the sort of nobodies, the Isaac Collins, the people who came out of nowhere. You also have to talk about Christian Yelich, who's not a nobody, who is a superstar, who is having a great season. He's been a big part of this.
He's been a huge part of it and didn't start terribly well. He was producing runs early in the season, but struggling to get on base. So his batting average was way below where he wants it to be. He was struggling. There's no question. You'd see him in the clubhouse. You'd see him around the ballpark, and it was wearing on him. But he stayed the course and stayed with it. The Brewers stayed with him in the lineup, and lo and behold, here he comes. And Jackson Churio, this time a year ago, was the man carrying the offense. He was out the entire winning streak here. He comes back into the picture here. The Brewers are loaded for bear right now. Knock on something, because this small payroll, small market team looks good, and it's not a fluke.
Well, that's what I want to ask about, because everybody's finally talking about the Brewers. I mean, everybody, the national media, they're all talking about the Brewers, and they're talking about what is it the Brewers are doing right that other teams aren't, particularly because of the payroll. I almost wonder, when I look at this, is this almost in the long run bad for the people who want to point to the payroll being a problem, because they go, well, if the Brewers can do it, then why can't everybody else? It's remarkable what they're doing.
But that argument's not going to go away just because they make the playoffs. That argument will go away if and only if they win the World Series. Because if you come up short, if you get 2018 and you get to Game 7 of the National League Championship Series and you lose to the Dodgers, it's not good enough.
Maybe
for
even a
fans.
bigger story at that point.
It's not good enough for fans right now. So until and unless they win the World Series, that small market budget is still going to be an issue.
I'd say this, and I agree with you. We're sitting in late August. I would say that 25 Major League Baseball teams would take the Brewers situation right now. You have the best team in the bigs. You have contract control for almost every player on your roster, and you have the number 1 rated farm system in baseball. So if that all comes to pass and plays out as it looks like right now on paper, as I say, this isn't a fluke. This should be kind of a sustained period of success. But will it? We've all seen in baseball things can happen. The wrong injury, you get some problems with your pitching, whatever it might be, stay tuned. But right now, the Brewers are positioned to really go forward. You have to commend the organization. General Manager Matt Arnold and his staff have really put together kind of a bulldozer here right now.
I just think, isn't it remarkable, though, because in the offseason, you lose Willie Adames, you lose Devin Williams, and there's really maybe some concerns about the starting rotation, and you go, is this going to be a rebuild year? Is this going to be... Who thought we'd be here?
You're counting on Nestor to come through for you, and he has, 2 starts, tops, 3 maybe?
Two, and he went to traded to the Padres.
2 before, he got hurt and then was traded, and then got lit up the other night by I don't know who the Padres are playing, doesn't matter, but he got lit up by Giants. Yeah. So, I mean, all the moves have worked out. But you don't know that they're going to. You don't know that Collins bringing him up is going to be so successful. You don't know that Caleb Durham is going to be great at third.
And sometimes, guys, we can sit here and talk. We all watch a lot of baseball. We can talk about a lot of things. And sometimes the teams probably go, okay, listen to those guys. You know what? The Brewers didn't know either. Pat Murphy was publicly saying, I don't know where we're getting pitching. Matt Arnold was trading for Quinn Priester in the minor leagues. You plug him in, he wins double-digit games in a row for this team. So it's not like people were just pontificating. The Brewers were wondering, the organization was wondering itself, and the way things have just played out, it's been just a season to remember. No matter where this all goes, this is a season to remember.
No matter where it all goes, though, is a statement that makes sense right now. But when we think of how last season ended, and it was extremely painful to watch the walk-off home run and the home run that turns things around, and then the season's over, and then the news about Bob Uecker, the loss of Ueck, a very painful time for all of Brewers fandom. And now here we are, and a lot of people are talking about the Uecker magic. I mean, there is that sort of, gosh, can you imagine if they win the World Series the year after he's gone? But then does he have a hand in it? I mean, that's certainly a conversation people are having, right?
It's certainly a conversation that people are having, and Bob Uecker is as revered in that clubhouse as anybody, is wearing the Brewer uniform today. So there's no question that Bob Uecker was the face of Milwaukee Brewers baseball. Bob Uecker passes after last season. Look what the Brewers are doing now, on track for their best season ever. So, of course, it's something that people are talking about.
Is it World Series or bust, though? I mean, if this team doesn't win the World Series, does this summer for fans, will it feel this way looking back?
I would say if they don't get to the World Series, just because of the success they've had and the streak. But let me caution you about the streak, which was fun and impressive, and always wondering how are they going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. This one, the 2017 Cleveland Indians had a 22-game winning streak. Tim, you want to tell us how that ended for them?
They did not win the championship.
They lost in the first round to the Yankees after going up 2-0. So that magic bottle can fall and break pretty quickly.
Well, St. Louis Cardinals, as you know, 83 wins, they're in, and then, boo, you catch it at the right
2 8-game
time.
losing streaks, maybe 3 that season.
You catch it at the right
crazy.
time.
Yeah.
You're the one remembering the losing streaks. Cardinal fans are remembering the success at the end. So that's the way that goes. And a good true Cardinal fan, you're remembering the losing streaks, because that was all part of the story there. So there's a lot of baseball still to be played in the regular season, and then, of course, the postseason script to be written.
So at the center of all of this, you have Craig Counsell leaves for Chicago, and Pat Murphy is obviously the manager. Mm-hmm. Ted, you've had a lot of time to talk to the manager. You got a special segment all about that, and we're going to talk about that when we come right back. Welcome back to Open Record. So throughout this year, a lot of attention on Brewers manager Pat Murphy, who clearly is a beloved clubhouse guy. He's well liked among the team. And Ted, you've had a chance to go one-on-one with him in a segment. I'd like to speak with the manager. I do, by the way, want to know, can we call you our resident Karen, since you get to talk to the manager?
Oh, no. I would prefer you didn't call me that. Thank you very much for even putting that in my head. When it was announced beginning of this year, or in the offseason, that we on Fox 6 would be carrying 10 or 11 Brewer games, and they would always be on Tuesday nights.
What a year to have that happen.
Exactly, right? And my first thought was, well, Tuesdays with Murphy, kind of like the old book Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. And then I thought, and then I thought, I'm going to pitch this to the Brewers, where we take viewer. These aren't my questions; these are viewer questions. These are fans, and we bring them to Pat Murphy, and we sit down with him for 10 minutes on the nights that we have, the Brewers games on Fox 6, and we see how it goes. And the PR people were kind enough to say, yeah, all right, let's give it a go. Let's try it. After the first one, Pat Murphy said to me after the camera was over, I really like this. This is fun. Let's do more of these. So he's been very gracious. And the questions have been great. Everything from, tell me about your tattoos, which he'll explain, to what's your favorite restaurant, which he won't, because he doesn't want people going there when he's there, to what do you do when you're not, in uniform, to how, we had a great one this past week. Somebody from Helenville in Jefferson County wrote and said, how do the catchers communicate now? They don't. Did you know this? I didn't know this. They don't flash signs anymore.
Sure. You get the pitch count.
It's in the ear, and they have the thing, and on the knee pad, right under the knee pad of the catcher, they're pressing 1 for fastball, 2 for curve, whatever, what have you. I didn't realize that, and it took a viewer question to point that out. So it's really been a fun segment, and the skipper has been very gracious with his time, and it's been a lot of fun.
Did you guys hear that? I think it was my stomach.
What?
I might be a little bit hungry.
Oh, here we go.
I got some pancakes in my pocket.
Nice setup,
Thanks to-
Brad. Good delivery.
Thanks to Dave Machuda for bringing the pancakes. That was a moment. I mean, there's just, let's talk about that. If you're listening and not watching, I pulled out a plastic bag full of a couple of pancakes. I had pocket pancakes, and they're
the package
homemade.
does appear to be pancakes.
Yeah, no, they're real. They're legit.
Now, he ate them.
He did.
Okay.
I'll have. Yeah, no, I'll eat some
Okay.
pancakes. Sure, absolutely.
I'll
I
have
thought you were
a
pulling
little.
a burger out at first. I
Yeah.
thought it was a
No,
joke.
no.
It looks like it could have been. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we're gonna
Who
have
made these?
This is Dave Machuda.
Oh,
Working behind the scenes. Dave, these
job,
are all
Dave.
right. I still taste the butter. That moment says a lot about. I can't talk. It says a lot about Pat Murphy's sort of colorful character. Set that up for those who don't know. What's the pocket pancake thing all about?
this was an Apple TV game, I believe, right, Jim?
Tricia Whitaker was the reporter.
Was the reporter, and they're interviewing him during the game, and all of a sudden he whips out some pancakes from his back pocket and just starts eating. Says he want a little bit of a pancake, and that created a social media storm, and everybody from ESPN to Sports Talk Radio was talking about it. And of course, that next week we got a whole bunch of viewer questions asking about the pocket pancake, and I didn't want to ask all of them, but I did ask him about the etymology of it and how it came about. And he said, in all seriousness, it started in spring training. You are there so early, you leave the hotel and you grab something. He goes, usually it's a bagel, but sometimes I'll have a pizza back there. And sometimes I'll just say to the players, break bread with me. And they're like, you just pull that out of your pocket. And he goes, yes, break bread with me. It's sort of a test of loyalty and what kind of guy you are. Are you going to be free-spirited and go with this? Or are you going to go, I don't think so, Skip,
He's obviously got a sense of humor, but I kind of wondered, that's funny and everyone's latching onto it because the Brewers are winning. Mm-hmm. You pull out pocket pancakes in the midst of a 12-game losing streak, maybe people don't think it's as funny, but I mean, he's clearly showing he's got a sense of humor.
Hey, ride while it's hot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whether it's the pancakes, whether it's the burgers, whatever it is right now for the Brewers and obviously for Pat Murphy. Pat Murphy's a unique individual for me. He can educate. Right, he educated you about the communication with the catchers. He can inform, which he has to do as the manager of the Brewers. He does that before a game and after a game. Baseball access is incredible with the media, and he can entertain. There, you can meet many people who can do two of those three. There aren't that many people who can do all three on the spot on a regular basis, and he can. And the Brewers use that to their advantage, and Murphy uses it to his advantage in relating to players. Pat Murphy has children of a variety of different ages. He can relate to players. It's the connection that you're seeing around this baseball team. Now, they could go on a 12-game losing streak and people would be criticizing his use of the bullpen. We get that. He gets that, okay? But his approach to the game is truly unique. His college coaching background does give him the opportunity to really resonate with young players.
So I wonder then how much of, first of all, that ability to connect with the players is what this success is a result of. But then also, I've heard people raise this question. Obviously, he was at one time on Craig Counsell's staff, but he had actually been Craig Counsell's coach. Is that right?
College
coach.
Yeah.
So there's some who say, was Pat Murphy the secret all along? Because the Brewers were having success under Craig Counsell. There is some, has this really been Pat Murphy all along? To some degree, is that, or is that just,
I don't think
he's
that's
our
fair.
guy now?
I don't think that's fair to Craig Counsell, who's got an amazing...
Well, I think a lot of people don't want to be fair to Craig Counsell right now because the rivalry. You know what I'm saying?
And all those people who say that, I'm going to put $7 million in front of you, and you
I know,
tell
we
me
talked
you're
about
not
this
going to
before.
take it. I mean, come on.
I know
Let's
we have.
stop the Craig
He
Counsell
pretended he'd never
bashing.
been to a George Webb's.
I didn't quite understand that either. But I'm going to defend Craig Counsell as a guy that just wanted to go to a team with a bigger payroll and more opportunities. And you know what? Maybe a change of pace is good. A new scenery has worked pretty well for Andrew Vaughn, has it not? True. Maybe it would work for Craig Counsell. So I wish him well in Chicago. Not that much success, but I wish him well. I mean, I got no beef with Craig Counsell. But I don't think it's fair to say that Murphy was the secret.
No, and that's
sauce.
fine.
Right.
I think that I agree. That's probably a conspiracy.
I jumped in quickly, but I want to defer to Tim
that's a
on
wishful
this.
conspiracy theory to some. I think probably because of the feeling about that rivalry. Yeah. But I guess maybe a better question, Tim, is was this known?
Are you going to ask him a question so I can finish?
I am. Okay, I'm going to ask Tim. Was this known? Was Pat Murphy known to be a guy who could do this, or has this been a surprise?
I think he was a guy who could be expected to manage successfully in the major leagues. He's an interim manager with the San Diego Padres, a very successful college coach prior to coming to the major league level, and had been in Milwaukee for 7 or 8 years under Craig Counsell. So he knows these players. He's had the years to build with Freddie Peralta or Christian Yelich or Bryce Terang or whoever you want to name on that list. I don't think it was a slam dunk when the Brewers named him as the manager. He admits he talked to Craig Counsell about going to Chicago and joining the staff there. Mark Attanasio made the move very quickly for Pat Murphy at the time. One of the selling points was that they could keep the coaching staff in place, and there have been some very valuable members of that coaching staff stay in Milwaukee. A couple have moved on since, but that has been a part of Pat Murphy's success as well, and he would tell you that. So, I don't think it's a thunderbolt that Pat Murphy's been a good manager, but it was far from a sure thing that he would be successful. And, getting his first real full-time shot in his 60s, that doesn't happen that much either.
Let me ask. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add to that and say, I think it was a great defensive move by the Brewers, first of all. All right, we'll give you this job so you don't go there, okay?
Because he would have been in Chicago with.
He would have been in
Craig
Chicago.
Counsell,
Yeah, absolutely. And that would have been a very potent combination. But I think my first sign, and remember, this isn't this season, this is last season, this is last spring of 2024 when he was named, right? Off season. When Christian Yelich was so enthusiastic about the hiring. I remember Christian Yelich is an excellent ball player. He's not that excitable of a guy. His highs aren't that high, his lows aren't that low. So he was effusive in his praise of Pat Murphy. And that was my first sign that, wow, maybe the players obviously know something that we don't. This could work out okay. Turns out he was the National League Manager of the Year.
Well, and I wonder where would the Brewers be if Pat Murphy was in Chicago with Craig Counsell, and who knows else who would have been named. What we do know is they're in a great position right now.
Well, and let's also point out that Matt Arnold was an understudy to David Stearns. I mean, there was a hue and cry when David Stearns left for the New York Mets, much as there was when Craig Counsell left for the Chicago Cubs. Both much larger markets, much larger payroll opportunities. Here, Matt Arnold and Pat Murphy are the respective winners of those individual awards last season. And who would beat him right now again?
No one. I can't think of it. I can't think of, certainly manager. I don't follow front office moves that much, but the guys he's picked out of the pile and put in. Can I tell a quick funny Matt Arnold story? Matt Arnold, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. We were going to shoot, and I'd like to speak to the manager, which we do on Tuesdays, and that's in Murph's office, which is outside the clubhouse. And waiting there in the door, talking to him, is Matt Arnold. And he looks up and he introduces himself and he goes, "Oh, is this for the I like to speak to the manager thing? Yeah, I saw that. I couldn't get my phone out enough to get the QR code. I wanted to ask a question." I said, wait. You wanted to come through me to ask a question of your skipper who's right in front of you who works for you. He goes, "Yeah, I thought it'd be fun."
What I do love about that, and we have one of the best in the business who's ever asked the questions of people like a manager. But the idea that people at home have a chance to ask theirs.
That's what he loves about it.
Well, but I think that's what...
I don't even know if he knows my name. He just likes it coming from the viewers and from fans.
I think that's what fans love, too, is the ability to go, I get to ask a question and then hear what the manager has to say. And he is so welcoming to that. It's not the typical manager speak. He's a regular guy answering stuff and having
and it doesn't work with every manager. Like, I don't see this happening with Craig Counsell. I think there's like 3 or 4 managers like Tito with the Reds, Terry Francona. I think he'd be great, too. I'd like to speak to the manager and some others.
There are going to be about 8 or 9 of these around the majors next year. I mean, this segment, because it's been so successful, and the opportunity
But
is
I don't
there.
know if they could be as good. Partly because it's not Ted, but partly because it's not Pat Murphy.
Yeah, it's the creativity. It's the way that Ted does it. It's the name of the whole segment. Everything really works here, and this is the first one. This is the pioneer of it. But Garrett, we all live in a copycat world. Sports are a copycat situation. You're going to see this repeated to some degree elsewhere in Major League Baseball, because why not? It's such a great idea. Nobody can execute it as well as we do.
Okay, so it is mid-August. I mean, we're talking baseball because baseball's exciting. But hey, guys, there's a football season that's about to start, too. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, is this where I get kicked out?
No, you're here. You get to stay.
All right.
Stick around, Ted. We'll talk about the Packers when we come right back after this. Welcome back to Open Record. A lot of Brewers baseball left to play. With all of that success, it seems like something has snuck up on us. Packers season, the NFL season, the regular season a couple of weeks away. We're going to talk about what to expect from Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs and company. Tim, there's obviously a lot of anticipation after a couple of back-to-back playoff seasons, but also a lot of questions. As we record this, we've still got one preseason game left to go, and the Lions await. What have we learned so far? What have you learned that kind of the big storyline so far in the preseason?
Well, I've learned that it's different this summer because so many people in Green Bay ask you about the Brewers. It used to always be, well, the Brewers season, when are the Packers starting? To allude to what you're talking about there. So the Packers remain extremely noteworthy for a lot of people, but the Brewers have really pushed into the sports onto the landscape, I guess I'd say statewide. As for what we've learned from the Green Bay Packers, not a whole lot, which is exactly the way the Green Bay Packers want it, right? They don't want off-season stories. They are not Hard Knocks darlings. They are not going to try to be on Barstool. They'll do the obligatory interviews. They want to show up and play week 1 of the NFL season, and then they hope playing week 4 or 5 of the playoffs.
They have avoided Hard Knocks, correct?
Yes, and successfully. If you make the playoffs, you don't have to be on there. If you change your coach, you don't have to be on there. There was a time when they were looking like they were going to miss the playoffs for the second straight year, and boy, they were sweating it out. But then they got in as the last seed, and then Jordan Love led them to that success in the playoffs his first year as a starter.
I love that. A popular show people like to watch, and none of these teams want to be a part of it because of the Packers, as I said, have had success, though, but they haven't gone all the way. Obviously, there are still a lot of question marks. Player-wise, what are the biggest losses since last season, and who are some of the biggest new faces?
Well, Jair Alexander is a loss because he's a talented football player when healthy. I don't think it's a surprising loss because he just wasn't available much of his contract, and the Packers had decided we're not going to pay that kind of money for somebody at the cornerback position, which now becomes, to answer part of your question, a key position to watch for the Green Bay Packers. Who's going to step in here? Do they have enough depth there? That sort of thing. The only other big signing they made, one was a cornerback, one was an offensive lineman who a lot of football people didn't even know. I can't say that I knew a lot about Aaron Banks, who comes in as the left guard. He's their trumpeted free agent signee. That's the way the Packers do business. So, they've come back with largely the same nucleus that they had last season. That's what they believe in, draft and develop. This is the 3rd year of Jordan Love as a starter. This is where these players will be pushing for their own individual contracts in the future, which should lead to team success. That's the NFL blueprint. That's what the Packers are banking on.
If there's a star signing, I guess it's finally in the first round, the Packers drafted a wide receiver, Matthew Golden. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions about the wide receiver room, and because you have so many possible players who could step up and be a 1 or a 2, and who is, you've got, and so many names there. Does Matthew Golden step in right away as wide receiver 1 or 2? Is he obviously going to have to prove himself, but what does he do to change the makeup of that room?
I think he's given the opportunity to do that. He's had a very impressive preseason and training camp and has shown that he can answer the bell. I think the Packers are going to give him the chance to be out there. Last season, they had a lot of people who could have pushed to number 1, and you could argue that nobody pushed to number 1 in that group, and that was one of the reasons that maybe they stubbed their toe more than you would have expected last season. So is Golden the guy who emerges from the pack? No pun intended. Will one of those other guys who you thought last year was right on the money to be a number 1 receiver this year elevate? Golden's going to have his opportunity. The 3rd round draft, 3rd round, that's pretty high too. As another wide receiver, Savion Williams, he's been in and out with health issues, and that happens to guys too. So, Matthew Golden, as much as anything, has proven to be durable so far, which is always kind of something to watch for a rookie.
Well, Jordan Love, I'm sorry, can I just ask this?
Yeah, please.
Does he have a go-to guy? I mean, Favre had, Jordy for a while, and then Devontae and Aaron Rodgers. It was like is there a go-to guy for Jordan Love yet?
Probably Tucker Kraft, to be honest with you, who's not a wide receiver, who's a tight end, and I would expect to have a very big season this season at his position. So part of it is you have a group of wide receivers, so you don't pick one. That was always the argument. Davante Adams was so good. Did he overshadow everybody else there? Should they have had more balance, or was he so good they should have just kept going to Davante Adams? And you can argue that, until the cows come home. In Green Bay, they have not had a number 1 receiver just kind of pop out from the rest of the group in the last several seasons.
I think about, you obviously had Favre going to Donald Driver. You have, Greg Jennings. You've got Aaron Rodgers with Davante Adams. As you said, we're looking for who's that person who's going to step up. But one of the things about the breadth of that wide receiver room is it seems like there are a lot of tools, a lot of options. And at least in their first season together, you didn't necessarily see egos overtaking it. But after a while, I mean, can you have a bunch of guys in a wide receiver room where there's not a clear number 1 and egos don't become a problem?
Interesting to watch. I think, I like the personalities they have in that room. We haven't even mentioned Jaden Reed here. To me, he's as capable of becoming that number 1 as anybody, a very durable, driven football player. Christian Watson, when healthy, could run
when
down
healthy
the field.
seems to be. I almost feel like I was going to answer your question that Christian Watson would have been the guy, right? The go-to, but he's been hurt so much.
He's been hurt a lot. He's in a contract season now too. He has a lot of motivation to get back out there as a football player and as a businessman going forward. Romeo Doubs, Romeo Dobbs being number one on a lot of teams, I'll tell you that. But, what's his future past this season in Green Bay? So, it's just one of those things we have to watch, and I don't know who's going to be now. I couldn't sit here and say, I don't think the coaches know. I think last year they were a little surprised how it just kind of stayed flat, kind of stagnant, if you will. As you said, a breath at that position. You have a lot of talent, but how do you go with the ball distribution with that group?
I sometimes wonder in this day and age, too, the perception of the Packers wide receivers, if it's harmed by fantasy football, because you can't count on a guy to be a big points guy. If they're spreading the ball around, as long as the ball's getting there, that's not a bad thing. But is there one star who's standing out, who's racking up big numbers? And there really hasn't been. Now, you had so much depth at wide receiver. You've got a guy like Bo Melton now who has shifted over to the defensive side. But is that more of a signal of the weakness at cornerback? Or what do you know about that?
Well, cornerback is a softer position on the roster. So if you have talented players who can play cornerback, you're going to give them an opportunity. You're going to look for them there. Bo Melton is a very unique player, extremely well-liked in the locker room. He was very well-liked in that wide receiver room. You talk about egos. I think Bo Melton did a great job of helping balance the egos, to be honest with you. He's a connector with a lot of guys. It will be interesting to have him in a different group. He's going to make the team at cornerback. He's a solid special teams player, maybe a standout special teams player. He's proving to be passable at cornerback to this point, and in a real jam could still swing back and play wide receiver for you. So it's not like some courtesy to Bo Melton. They're going to try to keep him around. He is of legitimate value to this football team. And I think that he will be missed in the wide receiver room, to be honest with you. Just one of those connector type personalities.
His brother is a cornerback, is he not?
Max Melton is a cornerback for the Arizona Cardinals going into his second season. Now they both wear number 16.
So we have questions at cornerback, maybe, like you said, a softer position, but safety seems to be a real strength right now, obviously led by Xavier McKinney,
who hasn't played at all in the preseason. So the expectation is he's going to be back for the regular season. If that's true, then you're right. You're talking about a position of strength. If it's not true, and Xavier McKinney's not quite there, then the defense looks a lot different because I don't know if he missed a snap last year. He was out there all the time. He was the quarterback of the defense. He made all those wide interceptions. Teams started to throw away from him. He's responsible for lining everybody up, getting everybody in the right spot. So he's a very, very valuable player. He sets the tone back there. They have other players who can play safety and have a lot of talent there, and that's going to be a deep position when they make their roster cuts. But it all starts with the head of the snake there, Xavier McKinney.
Well, and it also, the defense depends upon having some sort of a pass rush, and Edgerrin Cooper really became a standout last year. How important is it, and beyond Edgerrin Cooper, what are the Packers' weapons coming off the defensive line?
Well, Edgerrin Cooper should be, if healthy, and he missed a little bit of time last year with injuries, he should be a real step-up player. He's physically bigger this year. He's a year older, but he also really committed to being bigger while hopefully not losing the speed that set him apart last season. Lucas Van Ness was a first-round draft choice. He didn't have much of a 2024 season, but he seems very focused on doing other things here in 2025. So if you had Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, those are both number one draft choices on the outside. Kingsley Enagbare has been a productive player who's in his contract season. I hate to always mention the contract here. It's a motivator, though, guys, particularly in football. You're not talking baseball guaranteed deals where you get yours and you're paid no matter what. In football, you need to earn it and you need to go get it. And when you're coming up on it, there's really no bigger carrot dangling in front of you. So if you're one of those players, if you're a kind of a closet Packer fan going, who should I look for this year? Some of the sleepers generally turn out to be guys who have that individual motivation hanging out there for them as well. And Kingsley Enagbare would be one of those players.
Going back to the Brewer conversation, that's one of the reasons Aaron Savali didn't want to go to the bullpen. He was in a contract year. How am I going to get my wins if I'm in the bullpen? Well, how are you going to get your wins if you're with the White Sox? Let me ask you that.
Part of the calculation
Yeah.
he wasn't making at that time. So the real question then for obviously most fans is Jordan Love. Who's the real Jordan Love? and obviously he's had a lot of success. He's taken the team to the playoffs a couple of times, but there's still questions. What do you expect to see, and what is sort of the benchmark for Jordan Love in 2025?
I think wins are the benchmark for Jordan Love. I know people debate whether wins are a quarterback statistic or not. To me, with an offense like the Packers, as diversified as it is, with all the wide receivers we've talked about, with Tucker Kraft at tight end and Luke Musgrave at tight end, with considerable money put into the offensive line, and with Josh Jacobs, one of the best running backs in the game behind you, you ought to be productive, right? I don't know what that translates to into exact numbers, because if you can hand it to Josh Jacobs and he scores touchdowns, well, then Jordan Love's touchdown number goes down, but the Packers are on the scoreboard. So I don't really equate numbers for Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love's best ability to succeed with the Packers is to not make mistakes, really, not turn the football over. Just keep things going. They should have enough to be successful if they don't beat themselves. It's a hard measure. It's not a great answer to your question, but when I watch the Packers, that's what I will be looking for from Jordan Love. And I don't have a definitive answer for you on that, because I think the jury's still out.
I feel like Josh Jacobs' health has a lot to do with Jordan Love's success, because he's been durable and he's been incredibly successful, and you can hand the ball to him a lot of times, but how many times? And if one thing happens, then you're a totally different situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt LaFleur's never really had a running back like that. In Tennessee was the offensive coordinator. He had Derrick Henry a little bit. He's a different type of offense. Here in Green Bay, he's never had a running back like this at all. So it's give Josh Jacobs the ball. He's the bellwether, no question about it. You're exactly right. You put all those eggs in that basket, Brian. If for some reason something happens to Jacobs, or he just isn't as productive, you better have somewhere else to turn. And that's where Jordan Love has that opportunity to stand up and lead the Packers. I really like the way Jordan Love goes about his business. I think he's a tremendous, very consistent guy around the team. I think he's very well liked and very well respected. That's wonderful. It will be on how much do you win? I mean, that's how you're going to judge your NFL players. There are a lot of NFL quarterbacks who you wouldn't say are necessarily, boy, I really like the way he carries his business, but they won a lot of football games. What do you as a football fan want?
Well, and I feel like there's going to be a real test coming out against the Lions and the Commanders weeks 1 and 2. They're at home at least, but those are two tough games to start out the season.
I've used this analogy. I'm going to keep using it until it runs out. I only have about 2 weeks left, Brian. But I look at this Packers season as NASCAR. What's the biggest NASCAR race of the year?
Daytona 500.
Which is the first.
Right.
And so this Detroit Lions game is monstrous, in my opinion. The Packers, you play 17 regular season games, which means you alternate between 8 home games and 9 every year. This year, the Packers only have 8. Their first 2 are against NFC playoff teams, the Commanders, and then before that, the Detroit Lions, your division champion. If you don't get out of the say something goes wrong for whatever reason, you're 0-2 at home against 2 teams in the NFC. That's a big, big hill to climb. Not insurmountable, but to me, that first game against the Lions is very large. And as we've seen the Packers rest their starters through the preseason and have some spotty regular season openers in the past, there has to be at least a little bit of uneasiness as to how ready this team is going to be to hit the blocks.
And we don't know how good Detroit is, losing both their coordinators, one to Chicago, one to the Jets. They got blanked the other day in a preseason game, but what does preseason even mean? The Bears beat the Bills the other day on Fox 6. Are the Bears that much better than the Bills? Absolutely not.
If they play in the regular season, the Bills are not going to get shut out by the Bears. If they play in the regular season, the Bills are not going to probably lose to the Giants, both of which of those things happened in the preseason. I agree with you, the Detroit Lions. And, as you work in new coordinators, maybe early in the season is the time to get the Lions, right? So we'll see if that's true. And keep in mind, they also lost one of the best players in football. Frank Ragnow retired after the draft. If they knew he was going to retire, maybe you go through the draft differently. He retired after the draft. It's pretty hard to plug in an offensive lineman of that caliber after the fact. So maybe you're getting Detroit at the right time. Maybe Washington with Terry McLaurin's offseason drama is a good mark in week 2. You don't know. But I do think those 2 big games, and I'll start it with the week 1 matchup against Detroit, are just tantamount.
So one more preseason game, August 24th, and then 2 weeks later, September 7th, Detroit Lions at Green Bay, and that's on Fox, right? I think so.
No.
Well, no, I'm wrong. Okay,
That's elsewhere.
Well, all right, that was elsewhere. Well,
But there will be plenty of games on Fox.
That's right.
That Commanders game, though.
Brian took a stab at it
Right here.
Okay, there we go. That's a week after that. But anyway, season coming up soon, and we'll see how it all turns out. We are going to go off the record when we come right back. And it is time for us to go off the record. This is the part of the podcast where we get a little more casual and have a little fun by answering a question Sarah Smith has left for me.
It's kind of like our little version of I'd like to speak to the manager.
I suppose.
Right,
Well, except Sarah gets to
Sarah's
speak
the
to
person.
us.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. If we had viewers, so
She
viewers,
kind of is a
we
manager.
should say viewers. You can, if you watch this, you can send us in a question for off the record.
Yeah.
Just like I would like to speak to the manager. What is your go-to order when you go out for ice cream or custard?
Well, there's 2 different answers.
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
if it's
well,
ice
that's-
cream,
I'm
it's
reading the
Rocky.
question
If
that
it's-
she's posed.
If it's ice cream, it's Rocky Road. If it's custard, it's the tiramisu from Cobb's on the nights.
Now the question wasn't just flavor, though. It was order. So is it a scoop in a cup?
Scoop
is
in a
it
dish.
Scoop in a dish. Okay. All right.
Yeah, what am I saying?
There's a Culver's located near our station, as you two both know, and we've all been known to make a Culver's run at night. So that's your custard run. If it's a flavor of the day, I check the sign every day driving to work. What's that flavor of the day, which is going to influence me? So my order would be a scoop of custard, probably the flavor of the day and something like that. Ice cream would be, again, a scoop. I don't need a lot of toppings or anything else. Butter pecan or Baskin Robbins got that baseball nut. There you go.
Baseball nut. I've not tried
It's
that.
kind of a sleeper.
Anytime I go to a place to get ice cream, I see all the flavors and think I want to try all of those things, but I invariably get something with dark chocolate or chocolate chunks or something very chocolatey.
Dark chocolate is very healthy for you.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's.
That's how you
I'm sure
justify
it's all, I and even for the custard, I'll get something like maybe there's a mint chocolate or something like that, but it always comes back to chocolate. I recently went out and got like a combination. I think this was in Cedarburg. I got chocolate, like Zanzibar chocolate, and some strawberry. Put them together, and man, that was fantastic. And I realized I never get strawberry ice cream. I never really think to do it, but it was all right. That was actually, I guess it's sort of like kind of like Neapolitan, right? Because you add the vanilla, you got yourself a Neapolitan. So that was it. But I usually go for the cup, but every once in a while. You guys never do a waffle cone?
Oh, they get messy quick.
Oh,
they
man,
get messy very quick.
A waffle cone is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually have the best laid plans. I'm going to go home and go back to the station and eat this or something, and then something happens and I get waylaid. So a cone is going to be trouble.
That's true.
Dish, you can at
You're
least
taking a
put
risk.
it in a freezer or refrigerator or something and get at it later.
If you ever go to Dundee, Wisconsin, up near Elkhart Lake, they have a place called Hamburger House, and we'll go there sometimes, maybe take a motorcycle ride in the summer. It's a great place to stop off. Nice little outdoor kind of shit. And you can order a single scoop, double scoop, triple scoop of ice cream. Do not ever order a double or triple scoop.
No.
Because they give you one scoop in a waffle cone that looks like three gigantic scoops. And it's tremendous. And it's good, but I can't imagine what the double or triple must look like.
Same can be true if you're ever up in St. Germain, Wisconsin. Kathy's ice cream shop. It's a wonderful shop if you like ice cream. But one scoop will suffice for two people in many cases.
Now, we got a couple minutes left, so she's giving me some additional talking points.
Okay.
Okay, well, all right. Best ice cream flavor. I think we kind of did that.
Yeah. Yep.
Best toppings, if you get toppings. Best toppings.
They have
on
a
ice cream.
soft serve at the ballpark, which, we're on assignment. You just have to, if you're in the press box, you just have to have that. And they got the little jimmies and the little nuts that you can spoon on there.
So that's going to take us to the next question, which answers, do nuts belong in or on ice cream?
Absolutely.
I think this is a personal Sarah thing, because she must not want nuts on ice. I think nuts on ice cream, in brownies, absolutely.
It gives you
100%.
that saltiness. It gives you that crunch, the texture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for
Unequivocally.
that.
I think if Sarah was looking for support here, it backfired.
Now, my wife, when it comes to candy bars, she thinks nuts are just a waste of chocolate space. That you've taken
I
up.
can't agree with her on that.
I don't
and
agree
I
with
think
her
you,
either.
I
but
love your
she's-
wife, but
I do
think
as
she's
well.
wrong on this.
But I agree with you that she's wrong.
I thought these were going to be sports related off the record. I thought it was going to be like, if you saw yourself winning a championship in any sport, what position and what sport would it be?
Okay, you just asked that next question. Let's go there. That's fine. We got time.
It's funny. Like, I'm 61 years old and I still have favorite players, and Willie Adames left, so I had to get a new favorite player this year. It's Blake Perkins. And the fantasy of catching a fly ball, because when I did play, I played outfield, and going on, one hop to the catcher to get the last out of the game to win the World Series. That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, that was, even though it wasn't the World Series, that win, that ball. I don't know. Were you at that game?
I was not at
okay.
that game. I was watching that game.
Just watching the highlight. I wasn't there. But hearing the sound of that stadium when he made the tag, but then how it elevated even further when the out call was made. When the umpire threw up the out sign, I don't know that I've ever heard a highlight with a crowd that sounded that loud.
And when you see it again, watch Trevor McGill's reaction to it. It's great.
Well, and it was such an emotional roller coaster because the Mets get the hit. They think they're tying the game against this red hot team, and there were a fair number of Mets fans in there, so they're kind of buzzing. And then for it to shut down and reverse like that on the throw and the tag doesn't get enough credit on that play either from William Contreras. So
if you watch that again, you're absolutely right. Contreras does the dummy move where he stands there for like the ball is approaching and he's standing there like it's not even close. That is so important.
And then he slaps
then he gets it. Watch that again. There's so much perfection in that play.
Incidentally,
how about for you guys?
Pele World Cup.
Okay.
Your Pele? Is that
I'm Pele,
That's
yeah,
your hero.
yeah, right.
That's your moment. Okay. I'm going to go with they don't let you play as much music as they used to in baseball now. They move the whole game along, but Trevor Hoffman used to play Hell's Bells and walk in and close the game. I mean, come on now. So you're the reliever. You come in and you close it out. You control the game, man. Get the balls in your hand.
What would your music be as you came out of the bullpen?
Well, you can't play 7 minutes of AC/DC anymore, but I don't know. I'd have to give that one some thought. But the moment the crowd build, you're coming in, the anticipation.
It's kind of a
Baseball's such a
wild
game
thing.
of anticipation. Pele, that's a reaction.
Yeah.
Baseball, it's anticipation. Here he comes. Is he going to do it?
I got to give a shout out to the organist at Wrigley Field every time Danny Jansen came up. Oh, Danny boy. It was, you got to listen to the organist. They're very clever.
Subtle. Very subtle.
We are going to close things out here on Open Record when we come right back after this. That is all the time we have for Open Record this week. Ted Perry, thank you. Tim Van Born, thank you. Dave Machuda behind the scenes there. I'm Bryan Polcyn. With that, that's all we've got for this week. We'll be back next week.